roll.
You want to read your acknowledgement?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Actually, and I need it in front of me and I don't have it.
I've got the wording right here, Kevin.
Shane, would you read it, please?
Sure, yeah, it's right in front of me here. Let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial, and let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Thank you very much. Okay, Catherine, would you do the roll call, please?
Certainly. Sharon. An exuberant Sharon. David Anderson.
Here.
Bill, probably not. Janet.
Here.
Kyle.
I am here.
David Dillendorf.
Here.
And finished breakfast. Paul.
Here.
Jane.
Oui, bonjour tout le monde et salamat pagi, papa.
Oh, come on.
Il finish.
You too.
Show off.
Où est le bureau de tabac?
No comprende. No comprende.
Patty.
Here.
Tony.
Yay. Present.
Dick.
Here.
Liz. Bob.
Here.
Kevin. Olivia.
Here.
Maureen.
Here.
Anne Marie.
Here.
And Tom.
Here.
Live from Cannon Beach.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. So we want to go into approval of the minutes from May 25 and 26. So let's start with May 25th.
Okay.
People had a chance to review those. Any changes, edits?
Can't see over there.
If not, I would accept. Patty, please.
Oh, I was gonna say, I read them both and there's just a few little typos in there, but Sharon was getting over her illness. I mean, her shot. Anyway, just wanted to comment that we don't need to fix the typos.
Okay,
I
great.
move that the 25th be approved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Kyle Davies is second. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the minute or accept the minutes. All those in favor? Sorry. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are adopted. Let's move on to May 26th meeting.
Mr.
Dave?
Chairman, I have one addition to the minutes or change the minutes.
Yeah.
It says there that the issue of strong council versus strong executive was brought to the governance committee or to our committee. It was actually brought to all candidates for the Home Rule Charter Commission. We all received something from the League of Women Voters
Oh, that's right.
when we're running. So there's mentioned that was to all candidates. Thank you.
Okay.
Good catch.
Any other changes? Okay, with that addition or correction, I'll call it, to the minute. Sharon, please.
No, which set of minutes was that?
That was May 26th, changing the line that says that it was brought from the commission to saying that it was brought by a letter from the League of Women Voters to the full commission. That the subject was brought to us by that. So with that change, I would accept a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, Jane and David Dillendorf is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes are adopted. Okay, so as was emailed out shortly before the meeting, what I'd like to do for both the next two subjects, one is town hall preparation and the second is review of proposals that we put forward. I'd like to have a few things discussed that I think will address both of those. And so I'd like to throw this out there as how to do this process going forward. One is that today we go through that spreadsheet, and Catherine will share that in a moment. And I'm going to ask each of the committee leads, but also others on subcommittees, if there's anything missing. So what's not on there, just to make sure that list is comprehensive, recognizing there are a few things left to be added to that list, but going through it and making sure that what we have before us is the comprehensive list. The second thing then is that I would like to propose that what we're calling the exec-com, but you can call us whatever else, but this group that's stepped up to volunteer pretty intensely, about 6 or 8 hours over the next 4 days. Yeah, we'll be going through that list and looking at how to present that at the town halls. So helping Olivia and I put together the town hall prep, but then also getting into what I want us to discuss this morning, which is the idea that we take a breath and realize that we have done some amazing work, and we have a lot of really important pieces of potential charter amendments that would become propositions on the ballot moving forward. And like King County, we may want to consider splitting it. We may, I think that the voters' palette for us sending forward whatever ultimately we decide or as the final list, but we do have numerous potential ballot propositions moving forward. And so what I would like to suggest to us is that for a few reasons, which I'll touch on in a moment, we consider having some of those move forward this November on the ballot and some the following November on the ballot. And the rationale for that is threefold. One is that we need to do this right. We're doing big things. We're doing bold things. We shouldn't rush them through for, frankly, what is an arbitrary deadline of next week. Because we have that arbitrary deadline, we should get it right. And so by agreeing to split it and recognizing that some of that work will continue and some of it will go forward now, allows us to really focus on the issues that we decide are moving forward now and not the entire list at this point in time. The second thing is, it's not only not appropriate, it's not fair for us to jam our prosecuting attorney's office. They've been providing us a lot of information ongoing. Once they get this full document, they need 3 to 4 weeks to really dive into this. And there will be some back and forth. There will be some questions, but they also just need to really help put it together in a way that makes sense legally, so that they can do their job. The third thing is the palate of the voters. Not only do we need to be able to articulate what it is we're doing, and more importantly, why we're doing it and proposing these ideas to the voters, but the voters need to be able to look at a list and understand it and not being overwhelmed. And just like what King County decided, and Randy can correct me, but I believe King County was the first to split it like this, but we know that we can do this. What they did, and Ron shared this briefly in his presentation to us, Ron Sims, past county executive and secretary to HUD. Sims shared this with us, but in a longer phone call with me, he really talked about it more recently. And what they came to was they realized that the issues they were putting forward, all of them were really important. But that coming to the voters and saying, here's 12 or 15 items, go through them all, is just, it's overwhelming for one ballot. And for those reasons, I think it would be appropriate for us to consider splitting the work that we have before us, so that some of it would move forward under the deadlines that we have now, and some of it would move forward for the following deadline. And I will tell you that just thinking out loud about this, how it could work would be that, first of all, I would say that for June, we can take a bit of a break. There'll be some back and forth with the county council at that point in time, but we could take a break. But then going forward, I would propose that, we consider maybe meeting twice a month between now and the fall to really finalize those other issues that then in December, we would put forward for the 2022 ballot. And so, so again, we need to come to consensus on that. We need to make a decision on that. And then if we decide that that's the appropriate path forward for us, then this subgroup, this executive committee or whatever we are, is going to take a first crack at which would be on the ballot for this year versus next year, and bring that back to the full commission, and then begin that discussion. The other thing is that I also spoke to our auditor this morning at length about the timeline, the drop dead timeline for the auditor. Just as a reminder, we went over this in the beginning. She has to have everything to her the first Tuesday of August. So that's August 3rd. The reason we bumped back to June was to give the county council time to have a hearing or have deliberations. And I also spoke to Mike Thompson this morning at length about this. And he brought up another point, which is there's probably going to be some back and forth with them. They're going to have questions for us as well. So that allows them, say at this point, maybe 3-4 weeks. But then importantly, it gives the prosecuting attorney in his office a full month to really dive into this and have back and forth with us to make sure we all get it right and that he can do his job for us. And so that brings us to the June 8th presentation to the county council, when we will be giving them the documents, which is a little over a week from now, little closer to 2 weeks. So with that, I would open it up for discussion. And the first question is, what do you guys think about splitting this? And again, this is a positive. This is exciting that we've done so much work, that we're in the place that we are. But we need to make sure we do it right and not do it fast just because we feel like we're under a gun. So with that, Bob.
How do we give Randy's staff the several weeks that they're going to need if we're presenting to the council next week?
Again, August 3rd, so you have most of June, and then all of
you didn't you say we were going to be presenting to the council on June 8th or something like that?
That's right.
Well, how are we going to present to the council when Randy hasn't had the several weeks you said to?
No, that's the final process. So after it's at the county council, then it would go to Randy again. So Randy would have it after the county council. Randy,
I see.
Sorry, and I should say the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office will be as engaged or more so over the coming weeks as well, and helping us make sure that what we give to the council is in the best form possible. And I look forward to more discussions there. But what I'm saying is, after all of that, Randy, the prosecutor, has been very clear that they need a substantial amount of time to dive into this after we and the county council have done our work. And so that would give them that amount of time, because if the county council got it, say, or just throwing it out ballpark, if the county council got it on the 8th, they would have it until, say, the beginning of July. And then the prosecutor's office has it for all of July. And then the auditor would get it on August 3rd.
Got it. My second question was the election is the first Tuesday in November, I would assume. If we are going to keep our books open, then we will be alive until December 31st, as I recall.
Right.
And that being the case, is it beyond the realm of possibility that after the election and we saw what passed and didn't pass, that we could reassemble and figure out if we can get do some kind of repair job?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Although I don't necessarily want to do this to start revisiting things a third time. But
No, but we may get a clue from what they have to say.
I've got David and then Dick, and there was another hand too, and I missed it, I believe.
So Kevin, can we have an orderly discussion? You mentioned several points, and then you said let's let's first discuss how we divide up or whether we divide up. Can we just kind of stick to an orderly discussion and not jump around one by one those issues? And the first one you said was, let's talk about the dividing up the initiatives for, excuse me, amendments over 2 years. And I just want to speak in favor of that. I think we have to do that. We have too many. I completely agree. And I doubt if anybody else here will think we have to cram everything in on one ballot. Maybe we can just decide now and then move on to your second point. Let's have it in order. But I think the proof is going to be, the proof of the pudding or whatever they're saying is, it's going to be how the executive committee divides it up. But that's a discussion for later. That's not for a discussion now. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I will say I felt that Bob's comment was in order with that first
Yeah.
one.
No.
Timing, but that's okay. But I agree with you, David, that what I'm trying to do first is get a sense from the commission on whether or not we're in favor of splitting the work between two ballot measures. And David, thank you for your support of that.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we split it up, subject to the final outcome of the executive committee's decision, how to divide it up. But for right now, yes, and I make that motion.
Okay. So what I was going to say is a little bit of just discussion beforehand would be great.
Okay.
Second to that, we can do it formally under that motion. I may want to amend your motion, but so is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Tom Starr seconded. Paul, I saw, Dick, I had your hand first, but Paul, are you directly, was there something?
Well, isn't that putting the cart before the horse, and I'm waiting for the executive committee to kind of review all of that first and then.
Yeah.
So now we're under discussion. No, what I was suggesting, and Dick, I'll get to you in 1 second.
Okay.
I was suggesting was that we decide whether we're doing that or not. And if we are, then the executive committee would take a first crack at how it would be split and bring that back to us. Because the executive committee wouldn't want to spend a whole lot of time over the next few days really thinking that through and then come back. And then the commission says, no, we don't want to do that. So I feel like it's appropriate to make that decision first, that yes, we're going to do it, and then figure out which goes on which ballot. And Dick, before I go to you, Paul, did you have a thought on what I just said?
No, I just wanted to get everything in order.
Okay, yeah, totally. Dick?
So remind me from our discussion last night, how many issues do we have total?
It was just in the chat. I think there's 21.
Yeah.
22, but they are not all, they would not all be ballot amendments. Some of those are recommendations. And that's some of what we'll go through today after we get through this.
Okay, my concern is, and I do favor splitting it into two ballots, but my concern is that we also think about how many issues do we have total? My sense is if we put more than 3 or 4 on the ballot in each year, we're pushing it. So we may have to actually decide, okay, are some of these issues just not going to go forward to the ballot?
And so I think there's that discussion to have. The other conversation to have is once we have a final or close to final list, there's also a discussion with David. I see your hand. I'm going to let others go first to try and just speak on this matter. The other discussion is with the prosecuting attorney on how many of these, and I may not be using the right word, can be consolidated. So in other words, if there's 7 of them that are similar, that are all going to be one ballot measure, then that's 1 and not 7, right?
Yes.
And I don't know how to. I need the expertise from the prosecutor's office to tell us, or maybe partially the auditor's office, I don't know, to tell us the answers to those questions. But that's another factor that will come into play. Tom, you had your hand up. Was that just for the motion, or did you have a comment as well?
Well, I didn't know whether the motion is on the floor, but my comment is a question, and maybe you can answer, Kevin. What is the customary number of propositions that counties deal with? And in fact, how many did we have in our prior 2 elections here in San Juan County? I don't recall whether it was 3 or 2.
Maureen is saying 3.
Yeah.
Other
what about
Jane,
what about other? Yeah.
And other counties have varied. King County last time may have been the most with 12 or 14. I can't remember how many they had.
Really?
I want to say
Wow.
it's 12. And they split it 6 and 6. And I may be off by, maybe it was 5 and 5 or 7 and 7, but it was in that range. I think it was 6 and 6.
Committee's had been up.
Randy, did you have a comment on that?
The King County propositions, I think there were 8 last time. The Charter Commission submitted more than 8. They have a unique provision to their code that allows the county council to hold anything. And so those that were not put forward were held. It's not that they split it. The county council chose to hold them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Randy. But we have the ability to continue our work and put some forward later. So I have Maureen and then Jane and then Patty and then.
Well, I am concerned about all of this because I didn't expect to wrap another year around some of the work here. I'd hoped that we could get this done this year. And I have to say, in all honesty, from the last commission, I don't remember this being an option. I don't even remember. Tom, you might remember, Bill might remember, but I don't remember us having the option to go into the next year with another slate of things. So that's something. I have a feeling that one of the great challenges we have ahead is reducing the words on some of the work that's being done. This, to come up with what goes on the ballot, has to be very specific, direct, short, and understandable for the voter. And I know that the PA's office will take care of that in the end, but we have a tremendous amount of wordy amendments that are being proposed. That's a hard thing to do, and that's going to take time. So it looks like we may have to, just by virtue of that.
Yeah. One of the things, and Randy clarified this for us a couple months ago.
Kevin, I would very much like to speak to that. The PA's office does not change your words. When you take a motion on a matter and you approve what's gone forward, that is what we accept. I just want to be very clear on that. Also, the language of the San Juan County charter provisions call for submitting final submission to the county council, and it's not as clear cut about this idea of continuing on for a second year or past the time you submit them to the council. We have not analyzed that in detail. I think it deserves that kind of analysis.
Okay, I'm basing this on a discussion I had with you, Randy, and I believe maybe with Amy, but I know from you, and I thought you said it to the to the full commission too at a meeting, that this was an option for us. And so that's what we're going on, was advice from you. And also I remember the conversation that both of us were a little surprised, and Maureen, to your point, I didn't know this was an option until King County did it. So we know there's precedent there. We know that there's a possibility there. So I have others, but Randy, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Kevin, please. When I give advice, I give advice to the full commission. I give you advice in writing after looking at the language. Please don't use our casual phone conversations as proof of a fixed legal opinion on any topic. And we'll advise you about what we see as the language, what it means, is what the risk, as well as what the risks are of following one course of action or another. I think that should be all taken into account.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I will say that in several commission meetings, you have said that we have the option of when we submit our recommendations, we state that our work is done and these are our final recommendations. I know that you've used that language with us with the full commission several times. And so that's what I'm going off at this point. If this isn't an option, we need to know immediately. My understanding from every discussion that I've been part of and the full commission's been part of is that this was an option.
Yes.
So that's the reason that this is being brought up today. And so what we're considering then, and then I have Jane and then Patty, and then Bob and David, who have both spoken, also had their hands up, but I'm going to go through others before I come back to you. But the idea would be, again, that we split our work. And so we would not say that we are concluding, or that these are our final recommendations that we are putting forward at this point in time. It would be that we are putting forward some recommendations and others would come forward. In my conversations with the two others I spoke to this morning, and Randy, I did reach out to you and Amy as well, and I know everybody's busy, so I apologize that we weren't able to speak more about this as well. But in my conversations with the county manager and the county auditor, I got a sense from them, and again, this is not a professional opinion, but in a casual conversation, it was, wow, that would be, that would be a positive if there were less pressure at this point in time. And so I think for the three main reasons I brought up earlier, which are relieving pressure in the system, Tony, I've got you on the list, for relieving pressure on the prosecutor's office, and then making sure that we present something appropriate on the ballot, or more palatable on the ballot. I think that this feels like the right step for us to take. So with that, I've got Jane, Patty, Dave, and Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Assuming we are able to do this splitting, I'm in support of that idea. I'm not in support of starting to head in the direction of making decisions or trying to make decisions about which one of our proposed amendments would not be included. And I think that's pretty tricky water to start getting into. So I think we really need to, the smaller group of us that is meeting tomorrow really needs to start drilling down into what amendments could be, what edits can be made, and, and bring back be discovered by doing this complete review. So I think we can certainly make it tighter, and but we need tomorrow and Saturday and Monday to do that, which is what we've scheduled. So I don't want to get into a discussion of starting to take stuff off. But I appreciate what everybody's saying about, yeah, sort of there being too many issues on the ballot. We need to figure out how to make that digestible for the voters. And it may be that we also, as commissioners, we need to reach out to our constituents and start doing some awareness creation around what this all entails. So anyway, that's my contribution.
Okay. Kyle, I see your comment regarding town halls. We'll get into that in just a second after we finish this, but that's another agenda item that I really want to talk about as well. Patty?
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Two hopefully quick comments. When I was researching what other counties did for initiatives and referendums, I went to each of the home rule charter counties, and all of the initiatives that were up there were from the charter review commissions. And there were many initiatives on different counties, not just 2 or 3. Some of them had quite a few. They didn't have any regular initiatives, but they really had a lot of charter review. So that's just, other counties have done numerous. My second point was that we were on the process committee saying over and over again, we really needed more time to work on the last issue that we have here, but we finally got it done, and that will be talked about today. So sometimes working under pressure does help, but I am for splitting these in a really intelligent way.
Okay. Dave, Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we do split it up, which I do support, I would like to make sure that the public knows that it is split up, and there's the issues that are not covered on the first ballot will be covered on the second ballot, that they are coming, because there will issues that will be skipped. I think these concepts are ideal. Many of the concepts we're looking at are things people have thought about before, so I tend to support a higher number. I think people understand these issues, so I would say 6 at least per year. So I think people will be able to vote and digest that, and they generally just will be reading the title and understanding what's being said. And I also wonder if we are making recommendations to the council, we are not necessarily putting things on the ballot. And if we are just making recommendations to the council, couldn't the council even put it on a 3rd year? Put it on 2023. There are enough ideas. I don't think we should edit ourselves too much, because I think we want to be engaging people in our charter process. And so I would favor finding out if we can go for a 3rd year, but definitely I think we want people to know that there is more coming. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am on either side of that. I think we can either split them or continue with all of them. But here's my suggestion, my recommendation for you all to consider. How about coming up with a set of amendments and recommendations that that the executive committee, if you ever, whatever that's called, can go through and make sure that's complete. So come up with a number, whatever that number is. Present everything to the council with the note that a few of these items are ready for ballot measures if the council agrees to that, and some are not ready yet, but we can continue work on them after, because there's a limit on when the ballot has to go out and when the elections office has to accept everything in place. So I think we should put everything forward. Some might be complete for full consideration by the council, and some might not be that complete yet, and let the council decide which will go on this year's ballot and which could go on next year's ballot. And if we have to continue working on some of the stuff that has to go on next year's ballot, we can continue working on that until December 31st. So, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tony. I would say that that is different from the scope of work that the county council has at this point in time as a review for our work. That would be changing. Right now, the county council does not have the ability to decide what goes to the ballot or change our things that we put forward to them. They only have the ability to review, hold the public hearings, and so on. They can add new items, but they can't alter ours. So that would be a change in the current structure, what you're suggesting, Tony. But your first point, however, is understood. I understood to say that we would maybe put forward everything and then say some of these are not going forward at this point. Some of them we think are ready for prime time.
That is correct. That's what I said. I might have confused it with my second point, but my first point is really what's important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Maureen. David, I've got you on the list, but I want others who haven't spoken yet. I have Bob and David. Were there any others? Okay, so we're going to go back to Bob and then David.
All right, two things. First of all,
I would remind us we're still under discussion under the motion that's on the floor too.
right. I'm unsure about what Tony was referring to about work that is not finished. As of today, aren't all the committees done with their work? I thought we were all done and everything, all of our proposals were basically finished. And my second observation is that we have, if we do 2 years, which I think is a good idea, we have two different types of elections. The one coming up is, for lack of a better word, the small election. No senators, no congressmen. The good part of that is more concentration on our charter amendments. The bad part is fewer voters, probably. So we need to consider the nature of those when we look at what goes where, in my opinion. But that's all I had.
Good point.
David?
Yeah, the idea of my proposed motion is consistent with what a lot of people have said. Maybe I have to restate it, but the idea was that we are authorizing the executive committee to analyze all of our proposed amendments. They are going to make a determination of how many of those are going to go on the ballot in 1, 2, 3 years, whatever it is. And they're going to prioritize and they're going to make a recommendation back. They don't have the authority to do anything other than make a recommendation back to the full CRC. So then we can make a final decision based upon their recommendations and alter their recommendations as we see fit. So it's really our determination, which it should be, because we're not debating right now how many and what years. We could talk about it, but we aren't making any decisions. That's not, it's premature, obviously. And if the executive committee, for example, finds it along the lines of what Tony said, that something is not ready yet, that there's some tweaks or some concerns or something, they can hold it back and not put it forward in the first year because things have to be resolved first. So they prioritize, well, again, recommendations. And again, the number of amendments that are going to go forward, the order they're presented, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then we make a decision after further discussion. Right now, we're discussing these things, but really, my idea was to give the executive committee the time to study these things and come back with a full recommendation. So we don't need to go through these details right now. That'll happen in due course if the executive committee is given the powers that I'm suggesting, the responsibility that I have suggested. Thank you.
Paul, I'll call.
Amen and call the question.
Hang on, Paul's got his hand up and I want to give him an opportunity, but I also want to get a clarification from David because
Can we get the original motion in the short version of what you just said, David?
that's what I was just,
Good.
David, let me try and summarize because that's what I was just going to try and do because I want clarification too, because there's a nuance there that's really important.
Well, can I summarize since I made the motion? Shouldn't it be me?
Go ahead.
Make it short.
Yeah. My motion is we give the executive committee responsibility of developing a list of our previously approved amendments.
Period.
And which ones will go, how many of those will go on the ballot and how many won't, specifically one by one, and which ballot they go on, either the first or second or third year. And that they present their recommendation to the full committee for final authorization.
And so the caveat, so thank you. The caveat that I heard you say the first time you said the motion was that the motion was that we are approving that we are splitting it.
Yes.
I don't want
That
this
was
work
what
to
it
be
was.
done and then the commission say, oh, just kidding. If we're going to spend 8 hours over the next 48 or 72 hours working on this, we need direction that it's actually happening. And so David, I heard you say yes. So the clarification then is that the motion would be that we're planning on splitting the vote. That also gives the prosecutor the clarification of the direction in which we're heading so that he and his team have time to, or they don't have time. We're jamming them on most of this stuff, but they will be able to look into this further as well. But that the motion is that we're splitting it. We're going to and continue our work past June, but that some of them would meet the current deadline and structure that we're under and some wouldn't. And this executive committee will spend some time with a recommendation on that. However, I want to clarify, we have town halls Monday and Tuesday. We do not meet again before those town halls, I don't believe. And so at the town halls, we're going to want some clarification on what we're presenting there. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I just wanted to throw it out as a sidebar for now for us to consider. But the motion on the table then is, and Tony, I see your hand. The motion on the table is that we are splitting the vote and that the executive committee will come back to the full commission with a recommendation on what's on this year and what's on next year. And David, to clarify, you mentioned 3 years. I don't think we have the ability to go 3 years.
Well, agreed, but somebody suggested 3 years, so that, and they can also decide not to put anything forward or recommend not putting anything forward.
So the motion on the table is that we're splitting the vote. In my term, splitting. I don't know if that's the appropriate term, but everybody understands what I mean. We're putting some on the ballot this November, some next November, which would mean a continuation of our work past June on those second issues, if need be. And that the executive committee will come back to the full commission with a recommendation on how that works.
Did Tom second that?
Question.
There was a motion and a second. I think Tom seconded that, but Tom, do you second with that clarification? Okay, great. So motion by David Dellendorf, second by Tom Starr.
Dick called the question.
Dick called the question. So everybody in favor of us voting at this point? Okay, so I'm going to call the question. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Aye, have your hands up. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Davies extension, chair vote, and Tony abstained. Chair votes aye, motion carries. Excellent, thank you.
Can I have the exact count on that, please?
It was everybody who's on the call except for Tony and Kyle Davies abstained. Everybody
Okay.
was an aye.
Thank you.
That's 15-0. 16, 14, 0.
Okay. So as part of that motion, and thank you, David, you moved us ahead a little bit, is that which was my second point, which was that the executive committee will take this motion now and this directive and work diligently between now and Monday afternoon to try and come back with a recommendation of how this will go forward. this leads us into a next topic, which is we want to go through that. I have two other things that I really think are important for us to go through today, which I mentioned earlier. One is to go through that list and make sure nothing's missing. So the exec has the full list. And the second thing is a discussion of our town halls. I would elect for us to get to the town halls in a moment and do that list first, since that's the subject we're on. So can we move forward with that? Folks okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This will be a little tedious, but we're just going to get through it. So everybody keep smiling. It's a good day. Sun was out a minute ago. So Patty, please.
Yeah, is there somewhere on the agenda that the process committee can take up their last recommendation that we just?
Yeah, we
decide
would
on
gonna do that under new business, but actually for the sake of this discussion, if folks don't mind, maybe we do that first, so we know that's on the list.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's okay with that?
If
Okay,
we do it briefly,
Yes.
yeah, and yeah.
Can I screen share that thing then?
David Dellendorf, you have your hand up?
Oh,
Yes, yes, please. Instead of a freewheeling discussion that's going to take too much time, can we just ask each of the chairs of the subcommittees to say yes or no, that it's complete, and then move on and not have a discussion of
David,
individual items beyond that? Thank you.
that is my intention.
Good.
I will point out that, well, never, I won't even point it out. Let's just keep going. So we're going to go to the process committee and then we'll go back to the list.
Thank you.
going to.
While she's putting that up, I'll tell you all that we went through we finished everything but the rights of nature part of it, and then we discovered that rights of nature wasn't going to fly with the help of Randy. We then went to community values. We went back and forth with a number of suggestions from various members of the committee and couldn't quite get there. The suggestion was that Megan help us out, and we gave Megan some of the documents that we had been working on, and she turned it around the very next day. The very next day, it came to us before the committee, and this is just yesterday, last night at 7:30, and we took that, and the four of us who were in attendance, and that was a quorum. The four of us took a look at it, made some fairly minor tweaks to it, and passed it unanimously. That's where we are. We also passed a recommendation to the council that we thought was important to be included also. It was originally on this declaration, but it didn't seem to fit. We took it off and passed it as a recommendation. So here we are. This is a declaration of community values. And by the way, we have already passed the findings. What I mean by already passed, our committee has passed the findings, and this group has passed on the findings for this. So we probably ought to go back and make sure that that's correct, that this group is passed on the findings. So I'll submit them again to make sure. But the people of San Juan County, Washington declare our commitments to a safe and inclusive community, resilient economy, flourishing ecosystem, and sustainable environment. It's divided up into three sections: community, economy, and climate and ecosystems. For community, we say we value a vibrant, inclusive, just, and diverse community that fosters peace, mutual tolerance, and respect to each other's dignity, privacy, freedoms, and responsibilities, including the rich heritage, culture, and contributions of the region's indigenous peoples. We also recognize that affordable, accessible, and high-quality healthcare, education, and housing are the foundations of community resilience and stability. Under the economy, we said we value an economy that encourages sustainable growth and development within our agricultural, tourism, and other sectors, while creating viable livelihoods for community members, improving the food security of our county, and encouraging live conservation of resources and the minimization of waste. Under climate and ecosystems, we said we value the natural world and beauty that surrounds us, and the climate and ecosystems of our county, including the air, water, soil, and the region's remarkable biodiversity. We recognize the need for responsible stewardship of our county for the good both of our community and nature, including the protection and preservation of public lands and underdeveloped lands, and the strong enforcement of codes and regulations. For the findings for that, and I'll get back to the recommendation in just a recommendation to the council in just a minute, but for the findings of that, we said it is important for members of a community to agree upon and understand what its common values are. It is also important for the local government, which is empowered by that community, to understand the values it is to employ when it does. It is important for those values to provide a yardstick with which to measure the success of the local government, and indeed the success of the community as a whole in living up to its highest aspirations. By becoming enshrined in the county's principal document, these values are permanently held up to us all as our explanation to ourselves of who we are. Now, for the recommendation to the council, we have this. We ask the county council and oh, by the way, this recommendation, I should have gotten to this earlier, but it's going to require some wordsmithing. Okay, we ask the county council and the rest of the San Juan County government to be mindful of these values and to consider them in every legislative, executive, and administrative action they take, and to periodically report to the people how those specific actions comport with the values expressed here. What I mean by wordsmithing, it's some very minor things, because it's not included in the whole declaration, that they won't know what these values are. And so I suggested that we explain it's the values that are coming out of this other document. So that's what we have. And I would move the adoption of this proposed amendment to our charter, of the findings to our charter, and of the recommendation.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Can we stop screen share? Who was the second? Was that Patty?
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie. Okay. Bob, seconded by Anne Marie, to adopt the full slate. Okay, under discussion. If we could stop screen share, that'd be great.
Let me say that if it would help the group for us to do it with 3 different motions, I will do that. We learned our lesson the other day with putting everything in one basket. But I just did that for the convenience of the group, in case they just saw this and said, "Yeah, this is good."
Let's have discussion on the motion on the table and see what folks' flavor is. If folks would rather split the questions,
Yes,
and raise
yes,
that in discussion.
Yes, sir.
Who's doing screen share?
Pardon? Stop.
That's Patty.
Stop screen share. That'd be great.
Okay.
And thank you for that. Okay, I see Sharon.
Yeah, I just want to add that it was a really super painstaking process. Megan helped us out tremendously to really make this a lot shorter and more succinct. So just big appreciation. Thank you.
Okay, Olivia.
So this is after the preamble. So we have now the Indigenous peoples recognition, the preamble, and this. Is that correct?
That's what we were recommending, although I think we would be okay with putting it wherever you all wanted it. It could, I think the 2 obvious places are at the very beginning, where after those 2 things, or at the end of the whole business. Those are the 2 obvious places. We like it at the beginning.
So the motion on the table is to move forward this full slate as a recommendation that would become a proposition to the voters. Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the sake of mechanics, I'm wondering, should this particular set of amendments or combined amendment be pushed back by the executive for year 2 by voting on it now? If it gains approval, is there room or a mechanism to go back and revisit this if it's desired by the committee?
Yeah, so 2 things. One is we haven't decided yet which propositions would go this year or next year. So
Right.
that could still be decided regarding this. If it were put toward next year, there is still an opportunity to come back and have further discussion on where in the charter it would like to be, if there was some slight edits or something.
Okay.
And that's kind of the thoughtfulness that I hope we can have over the next several months as we continue our work on some of the remaining issues. Whether this is one of those or not, we haven't decided, but that would be an option. Others? Any other thoughts? David, please.
I thought the issue at hand was to determine if all previous amendments, previously approved amendments are on the spreadsheet. That was my understanding of what we're doing right now. And it
So
seems
Dave-
now we're getting,
Oh, no.
let me finish, Kevin. Now we're getting into new motions for new things. I'm confused of the process that you initiated. Which is it? Because otherwise we're going to get bogged down. If every subcommittee has more amendments and motions and stuff, this is never going to end.
So David, just 5 minutes ago, I said, let's postpone the discussion of the spreadsheet because the process committee has this issue that is a new recommendation that's coming forward from the process committee that they've been working.
Okay.
And then I stated that that was going to be under new business, but if the commission was okay with it, we would do it now. So we understood it was on the spreadsheet as we start to look at the spreadsheet. Unless I'm crazy, that's the conversation we just had.
Okay. I apologize if I missed that. Thank you.
Yeah, and so that's what we're doing now. So this is a new item. Following this agenda item, we will go back to the previous agenda item, which is pulling up the spreadsheet and going through that spreadsheet in a very brief manner. And to the point you put in chat, my hope is that when we get there, it will be brief. It will literally be calling on the subcommittee chairs and saying, is there anything missing? Okay, so I see.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maureen and then Olivia.
Call the question, please.
Okay. Does everybody want to call the question?
Yes.
I just want clarity. Are we voting on each piece separately or as a slate?
The motion on the table is to take them as a slate. So all of them will be adopted at this point in time. And to be recommendations going forward. Actually, one of them is a recommendation, one of them is a proposition, correct?
That's correct. And there, as I understand it, the recommendation doesn't go to the voters. Is that correct?
No, it does
Right.
not. It goes
Right.
to,
That was our understanding.
in this case, it would go to the county council, I believe. You can
But
also,
we're voting on all of them.
yeah, but what the vote on the table, the motion on the table would be to, for the CRC, the full commission to support these going forward to the appropriate place. So one to the ballot, one to the county council as a recommendation.
Call the question.
Yes, question's been called.
Yeah, so everybody's in favor of the question being called and us moving forward with the vote.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Olivia.
So in regards to the back and forth from the prosecuting attorney's office, this wording follows along with their suggestions, correct?
That is why we dumped what we dumped and came up with values. We have not, since we just approved this last night at 8:30, we have not run it by the prosecutor's office, but it reads the way that it does because of advice we got from Randy.
Jane.
Call the question and
Okay.
So the question's on the table. Everybody's clear on what the motion is, that these will be moving forward as a recommendation and as a ballot measure. Okay.
Yes.
So all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? David Dellendorf and Tony Gazelle both abstain. Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Well
Thank
done,
you guys
process.
very much.
Done.
Thank you for your work. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to Catherine. Can we bring up that spreadsheet?
It's coming.
That's okay.
Just want to clarify, there were no opposed to that vote, right? Just two abstentions.
Opposed, two abstention.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the clarification, Sharon. Okay. Yay, they're still broken up by subcommittee. So we're going to go through these. So initiative and referendum. These are the two that we have moving forward. And again, so we've updated the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet no longer has actions that we took to not move something forward. This is only the actions we have taken to either go forward with a proposition on the ballot, which we are calling charter amendments. And then I believe later we have a second spreadsheet, which is just the recommendations. Is that correct? Catherine, I'll get to you in 1 second, Patty. I see your hand. Catherine, is that correct that we have a separate spreadsheet for the recommendations?
There is a second sheet, Kevin. I've seen it.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. I just want to make sure that's what we had available this morning. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move forward with these. So who's the lead on initiative and referendum? Patty. Go ahead, Patty. You're muted.
We did approve yesterday one more additional thing to add here, and that was about the paid signature. You know, the regulation for paid signatures.
Yeah.
And I think that should be included and could be combined also. Do you need any further comments about what we have approved here? But I just wanted to note that we did have one more.
No, that's good. So we will add that to this, and we have that language from yesterday. Thank you very much, Patty. And that is a perfect example of what we're trying to do here. So we don't need to get into discussions of the merits of these or what they are right now. Really what we want to do is go through and make sure we're not missing anything, so that when the subcommittee looks at this and starts to come back to the full commission with recommendations, that we can make sure that we have the full list. So if we move on to governance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both of these proposed amendments here are due what the committee agreed to. One is looking at the oversight of the
Yeah, move it up.
No, looking at the oversight of the role of the county manager in terms of oversight of county government, and including the county manager with the auditor to work with the auditor in forming a budget. Thank you.
Excuse me, Kevin, can it be moved? Because I can't see.
Catherine's doing it right now. Catherine, could you go back just so we can see the two from governance? They were on two separate pages there. Oh, it didn't let you. Okay, so there's the first one. If you can go to the next page then, and then we'll look at that next one.
Okay.
And just while we're going through these, it was helpful. So Patty, you felt that your three were all very similar. They were all regarding that initiative or referendum process, and there's a potential there that could maybe be combined. That's a conversation for the prosecutor, but to have with the prosecutor. But I understand your recommendation there, or your thought there. So there's three from initiative and referendum, and two from governance. Dave, that was it.
Yeah, but I do believe they could be combined because they're both dealing with the role of the county manager.
Okay. Both.
And
okay,
I do believe there is one more that we are missing, and it revolves. I think it's what is it? It involves with the onboarding of committees and members of committees and boards, and it was addressed also by the I think personnel committee and also the Justice and Equity Committee, and it was creating a process, ensuring that there's a process for onboarding people and searching for people to serve on these committees, and then also what we want to make sure that there is diversity considered.
Yeah, Dave, can you find that final language, please, and get it to Catherine? Because
Yes.
that was adopted by the full commission, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
That one is missing. So
Yeah.
if you can get that language to Catherine, that would be really important.
Okay.
Okay, so one missing, which is boards and committees.
And I would suggest those three could be combined as well from those three committees they all passed.
Right. And again, recognize that we're looking for your thoughts on that because you worked this. Obviously, the prosecutor's office will have to tell us which ones can be combined and what can't and so on. And if there's a possibility for a kind of an all-encompassing one that has a lot of the smaller edits. Okay, and Olivia is saying it's there. Where is it, Olivia? Do you see it? You can just chime in.
I think it was under justice and equity.
Oh, maybe not under governance because some of the criteria.
Yeah, if you want to scroll through the document, I'm pretty sure it's there because I
Okay.
remember reading it this morning.
Okay, great. Thank you. We don't have to go down to it now. We'll get to it when we get to it. Okay, so elected versus appointed. That was Maureen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And yes, term limits is on there. It should be there.
And that's the only one from that committee.
Right now.
At this point, yeah, yeah, okay. Okay,
I'm sorry, which committee was that?
that was elected versus appointed.
Great, thanks.
Okay, let's go down to climate and environment.
It's included.
Okay, and that's the only one from that committee at this point. Just a minor recommendation. Okay. So if we go down, oh, here's another elected versus appointed. What is this? No, that was, so that one should have been deleted. That is,
Yeah, that's been resolved.
that's
No action.
resolve that, no action. Okay, so let's keep going, please. Okay, operations. Who's operations? Sorry.
Paul and Patty and I. Public records.
Okay, so this one from operations is, okay, if we keep going then. This is a very detailed amendment, but important. So this, were there any others from operations? I believe there were. If we go down,
Well, let's see what's on here.
let's keep going. That's all still that amendment.
Yes.
There are two other ones, but they, I think,
No, they're,
pardon me? There are two other operations. One is the infamous exemption of public officials, of elected officials, and the other is the bullying clause for commissions and however, I believe that that the
The bullying
Jane's-
language is in the justice and equity.
Thank you. That's what Jane's language in there has covered all that. I think if Paul is agreeable, that they can be pulled. They're not on here, but they should be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Patty, you have a comment?
ombudsperson is the next one down. And that's from the operations.
Yeah, I know, but we
Oh.
agreed. The two we agreed to.
Pardon me?
The public advocate and the public records.
Right. Oh, so they've already agreed. I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
So guys, I'm a little confused. So what's missing from this list? Anything?
Well, there were two that aren't on here that should be on here because they haven't been formally agreed to be pulled. And they are the exemption of elected officials and the language relating to bullying towards commissions and boards. But that language is now included in the justice and equity group, and we don't need them. But they're not on here. They should have been.
So there's two with operations that are on here, but the other two that are not are okay because they're dealt with elsewhere.
Correct.
And Paul, that's your understanding as well?
Yes, it is. I think we need to emphasize the ombudsman and the advocate are combined, isn't that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Same thing.
Well, I think we actually replaced ombudsman with public advocate.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just going to say there's two for operations.
Yes, correct.
And those two can be combined, or would be a recommendation to look at that, or no?
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Well, the attorney, the prosecutor will as well, so that's all right. Okay, so next committee. Process.
All right, process committee. The first thing is a preamble. That preamble has been adopted. That's in good order. The second item is a definition for nature. We came up with a definition for nature, ran it before the commission. The commission said, hey, you know what? There are some official governmental definitions of nature out there. We need to do some research. And so this needs to be, but has not yet been assigned to Megan to do that simple bit of research and to come in and see whether or not our definition in fact works or whether it ought to be something else. So it's an assignment for Megan at this time. Can we do that?
Well, no.
Okay.
I want to really prioritize her time right now on a bunch of other stuff.
Okay,
That if
Then-
that's okay, I would say let's circle back on that. I think this is important, but there's some other stuff that is more time.
okay, okay. So its status is tabled. So now we have more stuff. If we
Yeah.
can go up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have the budget process for future commissions, and that was passed by the group some time ago, and that's in there. And the last thing we have is the package that we just passed, which is the value, the
Statement of community values.
the declaration of community values, and also the findings for that, and then separately the recommendation regarding it for council and the rest of city county government. So that all should be on there. Of course, it's not yet. We just did it.
So 3 amendments and then the 1 recommendation, but we'll get to recommendations in a minute. But
Right, and then the tabled amendment also about the definition.
okay. 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 Yes, justice and equity.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm frantically trying to go through and make sure that these, each of these are correct, and some are not in terms of the latest wording that was approved by the full commission. So
At this point, Jane, I don't think it's as important to make sure the wording on the spreadsheet is correct. We can update that in the next 24 hours or something or whatever.
yeah,
I just want to make sure that the list is comprehensive, that we have each one of the amendments and the recommendations later. But right now, just amendments from justice and equity, that they're all on this list.
yeah. So the first one, that new section of non-discrimination, that's correct. If you could scroll down, please. Okay, this is, yep, that's correct. This is, yeah, establishing the Justice, Equity, Inclusion Commission. Okay, go ahead. That is correct. Yep, Article 8, Section 8.10. Yep, that's proposed amendment C.
The third one is what?
It's related to Article 8, Section 8.20. No, sorry, that's the 4th one. I apologize.
Can you restate the 3rd and 4th ones, please? Thank you.
Could you scroll back up, please? Whoever's got the screen share. Okay, that's the 3rd one. You see, we've called it proposed amendment C.
But
I
that's
can't see it because I'm on another screen taking notes.
Okay, so what would you like, Sharon?
If you could just very, very simply say what it is, because I can't see it from what I'm doing here.
Okay, Article 8, Section 8.10. Proposed amendment C, you can
But
call
what
it
does
that.
it do? Just to like, just,
I'm sorry?
it's all right. And then what's the 4th one?
Is C a recommendation?
That's what I was.
Yes,
An
no,
An
it's
amendment.
not.
She just said it's an amendment.
It's an amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this is the 4th one. Yeah, this is the 4th one, Article 8, Section 8.20, and that's proposed amendment D. Sharon.
Can you give
Thank
us
you.
just one word or even what it is as opposed to proposed amendment D? Like, what is it?
Exemptions.
Yeah, it relates to exemptions.
Okay.
The previous one related to.
Oh, you broke up there, Jane.
Yeah, sorry. Did you need that descriptor for the previous 2 as well, Kevin?
No, just the 3rd one would be great. Just so folks in the public too.
Right.
But
Right.
again, we don't need to get into a full description, just some sort of,
Okay, so for the 3rd one, it relates to the county council shall by ordinance establish and by resolution maintain a personnel system for the county. It was quite a minor proposed amendment.
okay,
Okay, so that was, that was related to the personnel system and how amendments, how changes to it are approved.
Right.
Okay, so Article 8, Section 8.20, yes, that is the fourth proposed amendment. And it relates to the language around exemptions, exemptions of individuals from the personnel system, and 2 additional clauses were proposed to clarify that in terms of yeah, so I won't go into detail about that. That's what that is, that proposed amendment is related to. The fifth one, Article 9, Section 9.21. This concerns the section of the charter related to the Charter Review Commission and its functioning. And this is a proposed change to the language regarding vacancy of commissioners from meetings and how that gets handled when 4 consecutive full commission meetings are missed. So that's what that proposed amendment relates to. Number 6, which is, yes, that's number 6, that's correct. Article 2.0, Section 2.60, called the proposed amendment F. And it is proposing that a sentence be added related to the add the following sentence: in making such appointments to the county council shall seek to ensure the values of diversity, inclusion, and equity are upheld. Yeah, so that's just when the county council is making appointments, that these principles, these values are considered.
Okay, pause.
Okay, so that's
Pause there for a second. So does that cover the missing one from governance? I don't know if it does. I think that's just the justice and equity piece of it. That doesn't get into the other pieces that came up in
yes.
governance.
That's right, Mr. Chair. And for clarification, I actually did put that in the chat. So what Olivia said about it being in this section, it's not in this section. So what Dave brought forward needs to still be, the language for that needs to be brought into this table under governance, because justice and equity did not deal with that proposed amendment.
Okay, so the language from that was adopted in this full CRC did adopt that governance language, I believe, in a motion. So that needs to be added. So Dave, can you get that language? And it is very likely that in our work with the execcom, we could look at this justice and equity one and the governance one and combine them because they're both regarding boards and committees. But David, if we can get that language from you to Catherine, that'd be great.
Yep, doing it right now. It's miscellaneous appointments. Yeah, we'll get there.
Thank you. Okay, please continue, Jane.
Okay, and then, so the 7th, so F, did we already go over F? Yes, I think we did. Yeah, we did. And then the 7th one that is here is correct. And that relates to the acknowledgement. And so that would, yeah, that's proposed amendment G as you see it, and it's related to acknowledging the relationship of Coast Salish peoples with the land and waters within San Juan County.
Okay.
So that is proposed amendment 7. I just need to ensure that the language is correct.
Yeah, that's okay. And thank you for doing that. If all the committee leads could make sure the language is correct on this spreadsheet, since this is what we'll be working off of, that'll be great. So justice and equity has 7 different amendments coming forward. Okay, if we can go into elections, please. Who is elections?
Right here, Mr. Chair.
Tony. So is ranked choice voting the only one? And I know that technically didn't come from your committee, but if you could help us with this.
Yes, I think that technically is the only proposed amendment, but we also have a recommendation. Is this the time to mention that? Because I don't see it on this.
No,
we have a separate spreadsheet with recommendations, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, this is good right here.
Okay, so just the one on ranked choice. I don't like ranked choice because I have so much trouble writing ranked without writing ranker. Okay.
Well, you're the ranking ranker.
Yes, I've been that before.
I know, I heard you on the floor say that.
Yeah, that was not a happy time. 3, okay, so 3. Give me 1 sec, folks. I just want to do some. So I count 20 amendments. That's before any recommendations, but I count 20. I count 3 from initiative and referendum. I count 3 from governance with the one that's missing. I count 1 from environment and climate. I have 2 from operations. I have 3 from process, 7 from justice and equity, and 1 from elections.
But some of those are combined, Kevin, right?
Some of them can be combined. Right now, they are all separate motions that we need to take a look at, and that will be consultation with the prosecutor's office, which again is why that deadline for us of early June is so important, because anything that would be going forward for this ballot, it's very clear to me the prosecutor's office is going to need a lot of time to work with us and also just to do their own work on this. But we, working with Megan, our staff, as Randy as our prosecutor just clarified, we need to finalize the language. So thank you, Catherine. And so what we will do in working with Catherine over the next days is look at these and see where we think there can be combinations. Those would have to be another motion taken. Jane, I see your hand. I have you on the list. Those would have to be another motion. So in other words, if we come back with a recommendation, we can't just say, hey, we've combined these. That only the full commission has authority. So we would take motions on each of those. But the idea is over the next days, we're going to have a lot of work to do. But yes, Bob, I think some of these could easily be combined and make sense to combine. Some of them maybe not so much. So I see Jane and then Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just want to let you know I'm working on a separate table to help our executive committee meeting tomorrow, and I can verify that the number that you just counted out is what I've got as well. So I'm just creating a different table so we can work with something tomorrow that's a little easier to consume.
Maybe we should make Jane the chair of the executive committee.
No, no.
I think that's great. All those in favor?
No. No. Bad idea.
I like Dick as the chairman. Anyway, obviously we will, since the executive committee has no authority to take action, but only to recommend, we are obviously going to have another meeting of the full commission. When are we going to do that?
Right now, that is scheduled for Thursday, the day after we have Thursday and Friday of next week. So we're going to have the town halls. That's why it's a little bit awkward, because we're coming back with these recommendations after the town halls, and it'd be great to be able to have some of this clarity for the town halls. However, at the town halls, I do think we will be able to summarize. And again, the town halls, the function of the town halls, and we're going to have this discussion in just a moment, but the function is to hear from the public, not necessarily spend the entire time presenting. Yet we want to spend enough time presenting in the beginning so that people just coming into that meeting get a sense. So why don't we do this, Bob? Why don't we hold that discussion for just a couple minutes here? We've got about 35 minutes left. Why don't we, we're set to go to 12:30. Anyway, why don't we try and get into the recommendations and go through that list and see if we're missing anything on that list, and then we have that list, and then we can come back to the town halls.
Good. Let's do it.
Okay. So let's go, Catherine, can we go to the list of recommendations, please? And whoever is the first committee on the recommendations list, if you could please start. I have to step away for just a sec.
I believe the first 2 are from Justice and Equity, and I've reviewed these. So the first one relating to the membership and composition of the Law and Justice Council, that's what the proposed amendment relates to. And there are 2 recommended actions that fall under that recommendation. The second, and again, the language just needs to be cleaned up here. The second recommendation concerns the functioning of the Law and Justice Council. And yeah, so the language needs to be cleaned up, but yes, there's 2 recommendations coming out of Justice and Equity, one relating to the membership of the Law and Justice Council, the second related to the functioning of the Law and Justice Council.
Those be combined in your mind?
As one recommendation? Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah. I don't see why not. They were just pulled apart just for clarity.
Okay.
Governance, the recommendations from the governance committee are the proposals for tourism. Moving the tourism bureau, one is to ensure that that there's a breadth to the tourism management plan, the master plan, that there are some important issues that the commission feels that need to be covered. And the second proposal recommendation was, it says here that it was to move the Visitors Bureau to the county government. I am not sure that was how we passed it. That was a second recommendation. I thought we just passed one recommendation. And so I have to recall, did we vote twice on our recommendation or just once?
I think we voted on the recommendations as one recommendation with 3 parts. There were 3 parts. One, go ahead with the tourism management plan. Be sure to look at add metrics. Second was a proposal to move the outside entity of tourism promotion into the government. And the third part was to prioritize using lodging tax for seasonal worker housing and to beef up, that's my word.
There were 3 votes.
Oh, there were 3 votes?
Yes.
But I think we passed all 3 parts of it. I don't think, yeah. And so those are the 3 parts.
Dave, can I speak?
Me? Yes.
Yeah. I can't see the exact wording here, but we did not vote or recommend moving the Tourism Bureau to the county. We voted to move the tourism promotion activity or create a department that would manage tourism promotion activities. The
Okay,
Visitors Bureau, I'm sorry, maybe the wording is to that effect, but I can't see it.
So David, what the exact wording was that we recommend that an outside contract, that there not be an outside entity used, that it be moved inside. We did not, and we gave an example of like the Visitors Bureau. So it's no longer contracted outside and it's moved inside. And I don't want to relitigate this.
The activity, but not the Visitors Bureau.
David, so whatever the motion was, we have it in our minutes and we can go back to that. But I think what Janet just explained was kind of the summarization of it. But again, we don't need to get into the specifics on the language right now. We have that in record and we will clarify that. And each subcommittee lead, again, I said this a moment ago, but if you could go through this spreadsheet after we're done here today and make sure the language is correct and where it is not, please get those edits to Catherine. But what I hear from governance is you have 3 recommendations, one on the management plan, one on prioritizing seasonal housing, and one on moving tourism internally in the county. And those are all recommendations.
Yes.
Were there any others from governance?
No.
Okay, so that's it for governance. Wonderful, thank you. Other committee recommendations?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Tony.
Tony Gazelle, I'm representing the elections subcommittee. We did present to the CRC a couple of times a recommendation that we are recommending that it goes to the auditor's office to instruct the elections department for a process to review the ballot processing. And if you want, I did send the note to Catherine. Maybe Catherine can copy and paste it. It's really just a simple language that the elections department could make it easier for observers to observe the ballot from the point of where they start to the end. And
I remember that.
that's all. Just a
Okay.
recommendation to the auditor's office
But,
regarding the election process.
and Tony, to clarify, we did adopt that, correct? I think there was a motion on that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one that's missing that we'll put on there.
Yes, thank you. And I did send it to Catherine in whole, so
Great,
she has the information. So.
great. Thank you. Thank you. Other subcommittees? Any other recommendations that we think we're missing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
You haven't gotten to process yet.
process. Go ahead, please.
Could we roll it up to process? Process has a recommendation which was just passed by this group just a few minutes ago, and I believe it's in here somewhere.
It's not in there. I'm just adding it to my thing that
It's
I'll
being
send
added,
them.
it's being added now, but can you just give us the one sentence on what that recommendation was?
Yes, it was basically for the county government, including the county council, to be aware of the values and to put them into what they do, and occasionally give the people a report as to how their actions comported with the values in the value statement.
Make that 10 words or less.
No, it's not 10 words. It's one relatively long sentence, but it needs to be.
I've got it. It's the county will recognize the value statement and report on its work toward meeting it.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's good. That's good. But I have the words for the recommendation here, and we will supply that to you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Any other
Who
recommendations?
do I give that to, Kevin?
Send it to Catherine, please.
Got it. Thank you.
And actually, well, Catherine will compile the spreadsheet. I was going to say copy Megan, but Megan can get the full spreadsheet. She doesn't need to get each one of these individually.
Okay. Okay. So just Catherine. All right. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other recommendations that we're missing? No?
Wow.
Okay, so under recommendations, we have 2, 5, 6, 7. With 6 going to the county council and 1 going to the auditor. Okay.
By the way, our recommendation says county council and all of county government. So it ought to go to the heads of each department in addition to county council, because we want everyone to respect the values.
All electeds.
Right.
And department heads.
Right.
And department heads.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, so now we have that. So that will be the list that the executive committee will work off of to try and figure out what should go forward this year, what should go on the next ballot, what that will look like, and we will come back with a recommendation. Bob, to your point, there's a bit of a cart and horse going on, which is on Tuesday and Wednesday, we will be having town halls where we will be presenting. Thank you, Tony. We will be presenting our work to the public. And I think it would be valuable at that time to summarize this effort. However, and this is not necessarily thinking out loud. I gave this a little thought at 1 a.m. last night and a little more at 5 a.m. this morning. I would ask 2 things, and I'm sorry Tony jumped before he heard this, and Tom had to go as well, but I would ask that each of you who are committee leads send me a couple bullet points on what you would like summarized from your subcommittee. What are the most important things from your subcommittee that we need to tell the public, and how you'd like that framed? And again, bullet points. This is Mark Twain. I wish I had time to write a short letter. But a summarization, and if you were a lead on a certain subject within a subcommittee, Janet, maybe you want to give me a bullet point. It doesn't have to be the committee leads, but those of you who really were engaged on a different subject or committee leads, I need this from you. I do not want this to be the Kevin show. We might even call on you to summarize briefly something, but it is very important that in the beginning of the meeting that we summarize for the public our work, and we do so in a clear, articulate, and really important manner so that they can get it. And thank you for that reminder, Catherine. And so for the town halls, what I'm asking is for each of the subcommittee leads or others who are very engaged on a certain subject to send me literally 2 or 3 bullet points so that the executive committee can help me. And if you could do that today, so the executive committee then can help me think about that initial presentation and how we want to frame it. Kyle, I'll get to you in just one sec. I was just going to say one other thing, which is that regarding what's this year and what's next, I don't think that is, I think the most important thing to share with the public is our work so far. This is what we're putting forward. And I will summarize that we are now considering some of that being on this ballot, some of it being on the following, and we're prioritizing that over the next days. But that we do a summary of everything that we're putting forward in a brief synopsis, and then allow the public to comment. So that's my thinking at this point. And I'd love your feedback on that. Kyle?
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity for leads and other people to comment to you in this way. I would ask people, I'm thinking about this for myself, that they kind of anticipate public questions that might come up, and keep in mind that we haven't brought the bulk of people along on the various pieces of this process, and so that should frame some of how we highlight our work.
Okay. I have Bob, and then no, I have Maureen, and then David, and then Bob, and then Dick.
I just wanted to offer to everyone, because I certainly saw it for myself here, there is a way to shorten the language in these amendments. These are really long, wordy, complicated amendments in some cases. And I think I can go back on the committees I've been on, and we can make that much more succinct and use the summary as the backup for why that is there. But I think it's important. I think some of the language is going to be problematic moving ahead. That's it.
Okay. All right, David?
Yeah, I apologize if this was covered yesterday or in any other prior meeting, but are we going to be responding to questions and concerns, or are we only presenting what we have amended, approved amendments? Is there going to be any form of dialogue? And if there is, how do you limit that so it's not just going on forever and ever?
During the town hall?
Yes, I'm talking about the town halls now.
Well, we'll have rules that people speak for up to 3 minutes, but anybody who's there will be able to address us on any subject that we're dealing with. Am I missing something, David?
Yeah, no, my question was, are we going to be responding to, they say 3 minutes, they complain, they ask a question, whatever. Do we respond, or do we just let it hanging out there?
No, the town hall, if we get into a back and forth with each person, we'll be there for 12 hours. So the town halls aren't structured that way, nor should they be.
No, I understand, but Lauren Stevens made a good point the other day that people are asking questions and don't get answers, and it's kind of like we've now it's too late to change things, I know, but they're not getting responses. I don't see why somebody would make a comment if the horse is already out of the barn. I mean, it's a position I think we should have addressed earlier. Thank you.
Okay. For any member of the public, I would say, we've heard this about the county council meetings. Actually, people have testified to us that they wanted us to restructure the county council meetings because they felt like they went to the county council during public comment and they would comment and there was no response. In defense of the county council, or our process, which is exactly the same structure, if you get into that back and forth, you do not have the ability to have a functioning meeting, period. It's just going to be the back and forth. And then you'll have 2 or 3 people that have a lot of questions, and the other 20, 40, last time we had 75 in one, and I think 110 in another, people don't get to comment because we can't be there for 12 hours. So the way public comment is structured in a governmental process, which isn't necessarily the best, is that people have the opportunity to comment and there is not a response. What there should be, and I hope there will be, and we did this last time, is we got back to people after the fact. We've heard that the county in the past, and this is something else that came up for us to address that wasn't fully addressed, has had a difficult time, I will say, responding to everybody who provides comment to them during a council meeting or to the county manager or whatever. And it's just there's a lot of people commenting. The short answer to your question, David, is that we will allow 3 minutes for public comment. People will comment and we will say thank you. And my hope is that each of us will then take the time to write to people and let them know that we thought about their question. The other, David, I've got other people on the list I'm going to go to before I get back to you. The other thing, though, that we did last time was not only did we respond to the comments that came up, they changed our agenda. Ranked choice voting has taken 3 straight meeting days exclusively because people brought it up during public comment. So I would say that our commission has showed a very strong ability and a real positive ability to respond to the public. That's the intent at this point. Bob?
This is kind of unusual, but I actually agree with David to a certain degree. This set of town halls is completely different than the last set of town halls. In the last set of town halls, we had our arms open like this, and we said, "Okay, community, tell us what things you're interested in, and we'll tackle those." Completely different. Now we are reporting to them, "Okay, this is what we've come up with. What do you think?" And if we could structure it, I don't think it's really valid to say, "Hey, this is the way government does it." I mean, we could say, "Hey, we're not going to do it the way government does it," and we could have a presentation to them about all the things, and then we could say, "Who's got a question?" Everybody gets one question, and you get 3 minutes to voice your question, and then we will give you a response, and then either you or the lead in that group gives the response. I know it's a little dangerous, but I think people are going to be very, very frustrated if they don't get to do that. That's just my opinion. I mean, we can do what we need to do, but that's what I think.
Dick?
Well, I could agree with Bob and David, but then I'd be wrong. No, I absolutely, totally disagree with that notion. It will not work. We had too many people last time, and it's not a good way to conduct things. We need to do what we did before. And I think what people want to know is, what have we come up with? What are we going to put forward? So in very brief form, we put that out, and then we let people respond. We shouldn't be responding in the meeting because there are 18 of us, and that's just one person responding in the meeting. Those are the kinds of things we have to take back and consider.
Maureen?
I think it's real important that we know and are on the same page with what materials we're going to put on the website before this. One of the things everybody asks for are the things that we're not posting. So let's be sure that summaries are up there, that this table is up there when we get things smoothed out. That's going to answer a lot for them. That's going to give them the material in advance. They need that.
My hope is that we can, working with Megan, have instead of just an Excel spreadsheet, summarization, like here's the 20 amendments going forward, and they have a couple sentences describing them. And then here's the 7 recommendations going forward. And that I hope we can have public by, late Sunday, early Monday. It's going to be a lot of work, but that's what we're trying to do. And then respond to that.
Yeah, that's good. That's
David,
good.
I see your hand. Others have spoken. We also, so I want to, you've already spoken, so I want to make sure others. So Sharon?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just to say that I think people will understand that this is a 2-hour town hall, and because we want to hear from as many people in the public as possible, we don't want to speak ourselves. We really want to hear from them. I think they'll understand that. We could say that at the outset.
Yeah, that's what it's structured for, and that's why you provide information up front. Any others? David?
That's fine. I understand. I said that at the very beginning. We can't expand this beyond 3 minutes, but maybe at the very beginning you say, we will be responding to each of your questions by the subcommittee chair. We'll be responding to your concerns or questions. I think we owe it to them to do it. Bob suggested that. I agree with that. We can't just leave these things hanging out there, but you're right. In the meeting, no.
Okay, thank you. And again, I need to clarify. I think we have done an incredible job of responding to the public who has commented during our town halls, particularly, frankly, more so than I saw in the state legislature or in the county with the county government. I think we've done a really good job. So we shouldn't be beating ourselves up on this. Can we do better? I think any government entity could always improve on its ability to respond to the public. And so we will continue to do that. Patty?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I've testified a number of times before different bodies, and never did I expect a response back, but just to be known that they heard and were listening to what I was saying. That's all I expected as a public testimony.
Yeah. The other thing that we've seen, frankly, too often in this county is sometimes events like this get barraged by groups of people who are really strongly on one side, and that doesn't necessarily represent the public. We've seen issues where, 4,000 people sign a petition and 100 show up at a hearing and sway a body. I don't find that appropriate, but you also can't say that just because somebody signed a commission, it has more weight or less weight than somebody showing up at a hearing. The only reason I bring that up is we are going to respond to everybody, but we also need to continue to listen to everybody, not just those who are fortunate enough to be able to show up at a town hall at 4 p.m. on a weekday. Anne Marie.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't allow a lot of bullying to be going on either. In some of our public comments, I feel like there's been a lot of, some people have been inappropriate.
Yeah, if somebody on the executive committee can remind me of this, help me put together the talking points for the beginning. And David, I think your Bob's point is one of those talking points, which is we're going to do our best to get back to everybody who responds, who has a question. If you come in and say, I hate what you're doing, or I love what you're doing, we're going to say, awesome, or gosh, I'm sorry you feel that way. But if they have a specific question about something, I think a response is merited. And so one of the things I'd like to say in the beginning is that we will try our best to get back to everybody. And we're going to really make an effort to do that. The second thing is we need to lay down the rules. One is no more than 3 minutes. The other is that it's not appropriate to impugn a member of the commission or the public. It's also not appropriate for others to question a member of the commission's motivations or a member of the public's motivations. Those are rules that we have in the Senate rules. They're not in Robert's rules. There are some similar rules in Robert's rules. But I have raised that on 3 occasions with this commission. And I think it's really important. And those are the two things, is that you won't impugn somebody else and you won't question their motivations. Those are 2 really important things. And if somebody can help me remember to get those in the talking points for the beginning of the meeting, I will do so, because I think those are really important to point out. Anne Marie, to your point. Bob?
Please, Janet had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Janet.
First.
Yeah, I just wanted quickly to acknowledge, Kevin, all the work you've been putting in on all of this, and that in addition to that, adding the town hall to this, and I know you personally, I know you professionally. I trust that how you handle this will be appropriate and respectful of the people that are there and respectful of this committee. And I just wanted to say that because we can nitpick an event that hasn't even happened, but I do want to say that I trust you going forward, that you will be fine and do due diligence to everyone that's there.
Well, thank you. That screws up my next point, which was going to be, would somebody else like to chair the town halls? I'm serious. Bob.
If we're going to indeed try to answer people's questions, we need to know how to do that. If somebody stands up and says, "Hey, I'm Harry, and this is my opinion," then I've got this question, and then sits down. You know, how are we going to answer that? The suggestion I would have would be that if a person has a question that they want answered, that they email to this address, and then give them each of the heads' addresses as we're going through this stuff. They'll have our address. They've got a question they want an answer to. They send it to us, and then we can email back a response.
Okay. So that's another, and I'm serious, you guys, I'm not writing all these down. So another thing for the preamble in the beginning is the email address people can send comments to. And I think they should send it to the full commission email, which is the sjccrc@samwadco.com. And as far as, and Olivia, I've got you on the list. As far as response, I'm not going to be able to respond to everybody. I hope that we have a lot of comments. I would expect that subcommittee leads will take issues from your subcommittees and put them forward. If you're responding, I think it's really important you sign them as you, not as representing the full commission. None of us represent the full commission, not I as chair, not Olivia as vice chair, none of us. There's the commission only has authority as a majority of the commission. It's really important. Similar to the council, no individual council member can take action. You know, they need a second vote. We need 9 other votes. So that's important too. But if others can help me put together this preamble that should include that as well, that'd be great. SJC Charter Review at samwadco.com. There's the email. Okay, Dick, and then Olivia. Okay, just Olivia, please.
I've been taking notes, don't worry. Yeah, also, Sharon, thank you so much for bringing that up in the chat about how we're participating in the advertising of the town halls. I know that it's in the blast, and I know that last time, Janet, you had made a really beautiful thing for us to post. Just wondering if it's possible.
She already did it. She texted it to me last night. So Janet, can you share that?
Oh, yay. Thank you so much, Janet. Would you send that to the full CRC? Because I know I'll be posting it on social media. Just make sure to reach out to as many people as possible, because there's only so much that we can do, you know, to reach people. But I know that if we can, you know, open that door again, it'll be really important for our communities.
And you guys, and I have 2 other issues that I wanted to get to today, but first I want to go to public comment. So can we do that? Can we go to public comment and then come back? And the next issue, which some of you are going to say, oh yeah, we have to do that. And some of you are going to say, hell no, you're a moron for bringing it up. And regardless of which is accurate, we have to do it, which is at today's meeting, I want a sense from folks on which issues we're going to revisit. If there's any remaining. And I know one that's come up, and I've already heard from, I don't know if I've heard from 5 of you, but one of them was this issue of qualifications for electeds. And so I'm not saying we necessarily have to take a vote today, although that might be a good idea, because normally we like to give that a little time, but I'd like a sense from folks just to have a candid conversation on if there's subjects that need to come back, so that we have those on our agenda as well. But for now, I'd like to go to public comment if I can first, and then come back to that agenda. So members of the public, if you'd like to speak, if you could turn on your video and unmute yourself. Carl, I see you. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
I'm wanting to say I've been watching you all these meetings, and I've been totally impressed by your dedication and by the details that you looked at and how you understood things and worked and argued. You're doing a wonderful job for all of us who are just sitting here and watching you. And I thank you very much for doing something for good democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you.
Can you come back every meeting and say that?
That is so nice to hear.
Very
Okay,
nice.
Others who would like to comment this morning or this afternoon, whatever we are? Yeah, please. And if you could introduce yourself for the record and say where you're from.
Steve Albee from San Juan. Thank you all. I'm gaining confidence in this process and in the amendments that'll eventually go forward. There's a heck of a lot of work to do, as you have repeated. A couple of points, and I realize this is probably redundant, but having been in many very highly contentious public meetings and town forums in Alaska, where you had to deal with people wearing guns and drinking beer, which you folks won't have to deal with. You know, one of the things I hope you can do, and I totally agree with not responding to most comments, and I think that's entirely appropriate. But if someone makes a statement or asks a question in which is embedded erroneous information or non-factual information, I know that we've all been inundated with that in recent times. You have to address that. You cannot let that go and hang in the air. And I don't really think that will happen very much, but I would ask you please to do that if you can. And then the other part is, I think it's going to be really important for the people who haven't sat through your meetings as you have, and as some of us have tried to do and understand the process, that at the beginning of the meeting, you can give a real quick summary of what's going to go forward, what's going to happen from these town halls on. Just very much a synopsis so that people get an idea of the flow and that really there's a lot still to be done. A lot of listening, that the county council might decide to have hearings on various parts of what it is you're proposing and all the rest of it, so that we have a nice feeling about what's coming through the summer and into the future before anything ever gets on the ballot. And again, thank you all very much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Kevin had to step away for a moment. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment?
Yeah.
If so, please turn your video on. I see you, Alexandra. Would you like to share?
Thank you. I agree with Carl and Steve. And I want to say to the point about how to structure meetings, my concern that I expressed, I don't know, months ago, and still feel is that I understand why within a meeting it doesn't work to respond to the public. But I'm wondering, just in general, if there's a way to respond in public to the comments, because it's really useful to me as a citizen to hear the responses to other people's questions. And one of the things that happens at a town hall is not just that the public is talking to you, but we're talking to each other. We get to hear each other. And that's a really important part of democracy, especially because we're going to be out here, talking to our neighbors and being the ones who are voting or not voting for the things that you have worked so hard to create. So if there's any other opportunity in the future, maybe after everything is solidified, to do another town hall and just say, the purpose of this town hall is to respond to your questions so that you know why we did what we did and all that kind of thing, so that people can hear the answer to other people's questions. I think that would be really valuable and would go a long ways towards helping the public align with what you want to pass. Seems like there was one other thing which I've waylaid at the moment. So if I think of it, I don't know, write it or something, ask another question. But thank you all so much for all the hard work you're still doing, even at this. Oh, I know the other thing I wanted to say was there was a woman who made a comment yesterday about the importance of having what is being discussed on the website. And I know you're trying to summarize things in the meeting itself so that it's not too overwhelming, but there are some people who would actually read the full content of the amendments, the proposed amendments as they currently stand, understanding that it's a working document, that, you know, the prosecuting attorney's office still needs to review things, that, you know, whatever the process is, but just to say, here are the amendments. This is the total text of the amendments, and put them on there so that people have a chance to read them in advance of the meeting. So we're asking relevant questions or making relevant comments based on fact and so forth. So thank you so much for considering doing that, because so far everything that I have seen has been within a meeting where it's up on the screen for a few minutes and then it goes away. But I don't have any way to see what are all the amendments that are in this summary. So I would really urge you to make that happen. Thank you so much.
For the record, could you share your name and which island you're from?
Sorry, Alexandra Gayak, Orcas Island.
Thank you, Alexandra. Appreciate it. And I also saw Ben. Would you like to share?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ben Bama, San Juan Island. I want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication, and as always, for allowing public comment. I've been to as many of these meetings as I could attend, and I sort of see it all coming together, and I just can't emphasize how hard all of you folks have worked and how much we appreciate it. And it just looks like it's all coming together. One thing I might suggest, I don't know if you can do it, but in the town hall, if you could have a portion that is public comment and then another portion that's just question and answer. I don't know if that would help sort of segregate those two things, but just a suggestion. Other than that, good job, guys. I look forward to seeing you at the town halls.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Is there anyone else who'd like to share during public comment? All right, thank you so much. This concludes public comment. So we'll go back to the agenda, and it looks like I think we have a really good process set up for the town halls. I think that if we spend some time getting people, more aware of what's happening, when it's happening, I think that during the session where we come together, if you have any other suggestions for what should be included in the presentation during the town halls, everything that's been covered, I've been taking notes so we can have a very thorough presentation before we open it up to public comment. Is there anything else that has not been covered that anyone thinks that we should include in the town hall presentation? Great. Oh, yes, Bob.
Olivia, I just have a question. How is this going to be presented? Will the other members or the committee heads, or will anybody else other than Kevin, say, be expected to participate in the explanation of this is what we have?
That's a really great question. Kevin had just brought up that he was wondering if anyone else wanted to chair the town halls or lead. So that's a fantastic question. I would suggest as a lead of your committee is to be prepared for that, but we will have a more thorough discussion. Is there any input on that? I mean, I feel like the format that we followed last time was pretty successful, where we shared screen and Kevin kind of walked through what has been covered thus far. But would the committee leads like to speak to their topics specifically during the town hall? I think that's more than appropriate. Any input from you all? Dick?
I think the way we did it last time worked, and that was, I think, with maybe one exception, if memory serves, Kevin just did it from the slide deck, and it was held to 15, 17 minutes. And I think that's the way it should work. So maximum time goes to public comment, that we don't need each committee chair speaking. I would be opposed to that.
Okay. David?
I agree with Dick. I think Kevin can control the length of the presentation much better than if we turn it over to individual subcommittee members, and then some will go on in more detail than is necessary. Others might not. So I think Kevin should kind of set the standard for it. The other thing I would suggest is that he introduce everybody, all the members at the beginning, so people could put names and faces together. So he probably was going to do that anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Jane?
Thanks, Madam Vice Chair. Yeah, I thought that I agree with what was said about Kevin sort of being the one that is the primary. He did in the previous town halls what was that if he felt it was appropriate to refer something to a committee chair, that's what he did, and I think we should go with that approach again. So depending on the nature of the question, we be prepared as committee chairs to speak to an issue if Kevin would like to refer it to us. But I completely trust his judgment in that regard, and I think it'll make things flow more smoothly. The other thing I wanted to ask or suggest is, and I can't recall who mentioned this, and it might have been in a public comment just now, but that I think in terms of the public understanding the mechanics in terms of how we've been operating is extremely important. And I think that, I don't know that we have time to do this, but I'd be darn interested in the stats. If people had an idea of the number of meetings we've had, the number of committees we've had, the number of people who've sat on the different committees, I mean, I just think it'd be amazing to have one slide in the deck that just says, that just gives the public a sense of the level of effort that has gone into these deliberations and how many of the commissioners have been there representing their constituents in these various meetings. And I think it behooves us to do that for the public so they have a sense of, yeah, how hard have we been working for the last 4 months? Because, we're know that we're totally committed to this. Anyway, so Olivia, I don't know if we could have maybe 1 or 2 slides at the front end that just kind of introduces how we've worked. And it's not been perfect, but there's no place.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. Thank you, Jane. I was also thinking about that as well when we were corresponding via email, just kind of presenting a document as well about what the CRC's process has been and how we've come up with what we are going to present. Just kind of an overall of what we have done. And so I think that can be included into this. So I've got it written down just kind of by consensus. I saw a lot of these. So does that sound good to everyone to kind of give a brief presentation on that?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful.
No. Yeah, I disagree.
No?
No, I disagree.
No.
Okay. If you'd like to share, please raise your hand. Patty?
Yeah, I don't think we need to give a brief presentation. What I heard was, say, a slide indicating like how it's been almost 80 meetings I know that I've been in on this thing. I counted it up a couple of days ago, and that's not including if we go to December. But yeah, just something like that. And as far as you don't want to have each individual lead, say, giving a presentation unless it's necessary. But I think a slide that may have each of our our amendments would be good. I don't know what's in the slideshow. I think the slideshow is really important, but I don't want to be called on to testify it.
Okay, Dick?
I hate to be the curmudgeon, but I will. If I'm the public and I'm in the audience and I either don't like what CRC is doing or I really like what the CRC is doing, frankly, I don't care how many meetings you've had. Doesn't matter. I don't see it.
Okay, Jane?
Yeah,
You're cutting out, Jane.
Be cumbersome and overly and overly
cutting out. We can't really hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't think it needs to be cumbersome and overly detailed. I'm talking about a snapshot of how we've been structured. I think constituents might be interested to know that actually every single one of our 8 committees had at least one representative from their district. I think basic information like that. So while it may not matter to you, Dick, I think I even saw Steve Olvey turn on his video and put a thumbs up when I made that comment. And I know how to provide support to keep these slides really, really concise. And I know Kevin does as well, and a few of the others of us on the executive committee, but I am certainly not talking about a detailed process discussion of how we've managed our affairs. I'm not suggesting that at all, but I think it is, I think, you know, it would behoove us just to give some sense of how we've been structured and functioned.
All right, thank you for your feedback. Anyone else? Maureen?
I just have to say, I do agree with Dick. I'm not disagreeing with Jane's desire to have that snapshot, but I really think that the public is interested in solutions, and they're interested in what we're going to do to help change things. There are people out there that are upset with the government or feel that they're not doing what they should do. And we were elected to do something, and I think we have to just do it. We have to bite the bullet on this and just do it. It would take away from the information we're trying to pass on.
I agree.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I would recommend that the executive committee come up with a scenario of how to do the intro and maybe a brief summary of what subcommittees we've had. And, you know, we can just say we've had, 120 meetings or whatever, but the main point is, here's the subcommittees, here's the issues we've worked on, here's what we're putting forward. But I think your executive committee can kind of put that together, and folks can send Olivia and myself or other members of that execcom ideas. And Olivia, thank you for taking notes on everything I need to remember.
All right, so I believe that we have, do we need to go over more of the document that was up on the screen before we went to public comment? Are we done with that now? We're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move to new business on the agenda then?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So I know that we had process committee set for new business, but we're good to go with that. Is there any new business?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The other issue that we need to address that I had suggested is what issues might we want to revisit. And I just wanted a sense from folks on that. I know that the issue of elected qualifications, several of you, what's the definition of several? Is several four? I'll just say some of you have contacted me and said that is that discussion dead? And what I have said is no, it absolutely isn't. What died was there was a motion put forward, and even that could be revisited with 5 people. But let me preface this by saying, I do not want to open a can of worms where we revisit every issue somebody didn't like the way that it went. On 2 occasions, we have revisited issues. So I don't even think this is the same. This is not a revisiting of issues. This is on qualifications anyway. If folks would like to have a discussion of that, where maybe instead of the motion that failed, which was it was take it all, it was here's all in one motion. What people brought up to me is, what if we brought up individual motions for the different electeds? And what I have said is that would be in order, as the subcommittee did address those. And people could challenge that, or if they wanted to challenge it, we could say it requires 5, and then we bring it back through that process. But the reason I'm bringing this up now is because if there is an issue like that we think is going to come back, I think it would be good to know that before the town halls, but also just before we're getting into this next few days of intensive work. I would say that if something like that comes back, maybe it's something that goes on to that second year ballot or something, but that's not a decision we've made yet. But what I want to know as a sense from people is if elected qualifications, or are there any other matters that a group of commissioners are thinking of that we have yet to discuss?
Yeah, I've not received 5 emails to discuss this again. And I know that that's the process of what we agreed on, is that there were going to be 5 individuals. So I don't have any record of that. So if that is going to happen, maybe people have sent things to Kevin directly, but I have not viewed anything yet. So we're happy to discuss that again.
Can I
see
comment?
Sharon.
Wait, I have my
I
hand
see
up.
Sharon.
Yeah, so I think Olivia's doing a fantastic job. I love her chairing this right now, so she's going to continue. Madam Vice Chair, may I make one clarification on my comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I was not saying that I have received 5 emails under that process. What I'm saying is that under the current process, the one issue of qualifications wouldn't necessarily need to go through that process because it's not a revisiting unless they want to revisit that motion, which did fail. There was never a second motion, but we were at the end of the day and there was never a second motion to say, okay, that motion failed. Do we want to do it one at a time or whatever else? And that's what came up to me. And so I think under our rules, you could have another motion put on the floor to, say, I don't know, sheriff or whatever. And so that's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to say I didn't send an email, but I am definitely up for discussion qualifications again and revisiting that.
Thank you. Dick?
Yeah. I'll remind everybody, I'm one of the 2 people who originally put qualifications for electeds on the list way back 3 years ago or whenever it was we started this. And I am adamantly opposed, even though it failed, I am adamantly opposed to the notion that we could bring back an issue that the whole commission acted on with just 5 people. My understanding was that 5 people bringing up an issue was for issues that never made it out of a subcommittee, that's the way we would do it. If we're going to open up every vote that every item the commission turned down, if 5 people want to reopen it, we're going to be here for the next 2 years. I'm just absolutely opposed to it. Kevin's idea that it's maybe an entirely different vote if we're going to talk about doing them one at a time, that's a separate issue. But I don't think anything the full commission has acted on should be allowed to be brought back with 5 people requesting it. That's just wrong. It has to be a motion of someone who was in the majority and a second to bring it back.
Okay. David D?
No, we're not bringing back a motion, Dick. This is a whole new discussion. It's now one by one.
I said that.
So that is what Kevin has stated, and I agree with him, and I urge this be brought back for individual discussion, not brought back, for the first time, have individual discussion of qualifications for individual candidates, one by one. That's a whole new issue. It hasn't been discussed at all by the Charter Review Commission.
Okay, thank you, Maureen.
This is so infuriating, this whole thing to me. I apologize to my team on elected versus appointed because Dick was absent at this discussion, which had been brought forth a number of times. And it was, in my opinion, the task was to add language for minimum qualifications for electeds. And I insisted on that day that we treat it as a slate instead of per, because that's what it seemed to me to ask for. So I apologize to my committee for that because that was my doing. And I think it should come back. I think the way it was voted on was tragic. And I hope that will be considered. Of course, having said that, I would also like to say, I'm very uncomfortable with the tourism vote that's being proposed, the recommendations proposed by the governance committee, in part because it was brought up, we received it less than 30 minutes before the meeting started, and we didn't have a chance to really vet that. The vote went quickly, and I feel a little blindsided by that, and I would like to go back to it. But it sounds like that's not a permissible bring back. I'd like to hear what others think.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Bob?
I move that we consider the minimum qualifications for the auditor as a start. We can get this done in 15 minutes.
Is there a second?
Okay,
Motion fails.
thank you.
All right, Anne Marie?
Yeah, hi, I thought, I think it was last night that David was in the car and Maureen read his statement, and the very last item on his statement was a request to open this so that it could be instead of a slate, a 1-by-1 vote. And I'm not, a Robert's Rules kind of gal, so I'm not sure what the next procedure is, but I thought that opened this issue on the elected or the qualifications.
Could I comment on that?
One
Could
moment, David.
I'm leaving
I
right
think,
now.
David, you have not
Yeah.
been called on.
Well, I'm
Point of
explaining
order,
what I'm doing, and I would
Order,
make an
order. David, you need to be acknowledged.
Goodbye.
Kevin?
Goodbye.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Just process-wise, under our rules, there's 3 ways to do this. One is this issue of something that came from, and Dick was correct in how he explained this. The rule that we adopted for the 5 votes to bring it back was something that had not come out of a subcommittee. We have not discussed that having the same, that applying to something that failed with the full commission. And I would say I agree with Dick that at the very least, that's new territory. And at the very most, that's extremely troublesome. Under Robert's Rules of Order, which we have adopted, there is a way to bring back a motion, however, that has failed, which is to, and it has to be somebody who voted on the prevailing side. And the way it is worded is somebody says, having voted on the prevailing side of X motion, I move that we reconsider. And then there needs to be a vote for the reconsideration. That also, however, is not what I was suggesting has come up to me in conversation. What I was suggesting is what Bob attempted to do, which is to put forward an entirely new motion on the same or on similar, not the same, but on similar subject matter. It is interesting to me that the auditor one didn't even get a second, however, because some of the folks who talked to me actually mentioned that as an example. So maybe there's not the support for this. I by no means want to add work to our agenda, period, full stop. All I'm trying to do is make sure that in this meeting, when we're trying to finalize our discussions, that we have everything on our plate on that list that the executive committee is going to consider. And what I would also say is we also took a vote earlier today to decide that we are going to continue our work past June. So it doesn't mean that this couldn't come up during that process. Again, we don't have to jam ourselves. We don't need to jam our prosecutor's office, and we don't need to jam the public with any of this. So this could be a topic for a later discussion. I thought that there might be a need for it this evening, maybe there, or this afternoon, maybe there isn't.
Thank you, Kevin, for your point. Appreciated. Is there any other discussion? Okay, anything else for new business? Okay, I think that's it for new business. All right, so yes, Jane.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize if I missed something here, but I'm not clear on where we stand then on resolving this issue, and I'm also not clear on where we stand on the ranked choice voting issue that's still up in the air. So I'd appreciate understanding how we're going to resolve these things. I'm not clear on it.
Sure, Kevin.
Ranked choice voting was on the list under the elections committee. It was voted upon. And the vote was, if I'm remembering correctly, that we would approve ranked choice voting the moment it was authorized for us to do so at the state level. And so that is the vote that was taken. that will be a proposal going forward. And so that's in my understanding, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that issue's done.
Maureen?
I thought it was challenged. That vote was challenged by Tony.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, correct. So
What does
the
that mean?
prosecuting attorney then followed up with an email to all of us, which has the Robert's Rules of Order attached in a link. I really hope that all of you have reviewed that. I know that I printed it out and brought it with me to the meeting because I had a feeling that it would be covered. So if you want to print it out, have a copy of it. It does clearly go over the 2/3 that it is who is present, not the full commission. So the challenge was accepted, and then if we have adopted these Robert's Rules of Orders, that is, what we are going to continue to abide by. So if you have any questions about the details of that, please look into what the prosecuting attorney delivered to us during that meeting. So to Tony's point, it was reviewed and it did pass. So does that answer your question, Jane? Thank you. Anne Marie?
Same thing. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understood if it passed or not, because I did read Randy's thing a little while ago, and so thanks.
Thank you. I believe Sharon had your hand up. No?
Yeah, I was just going to speak to that, but now it's already been spoken to, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any other new business? Okay, I would accept yes, Kevin.
Just a comment that if possible, I'd like Megan and Catherine to try and attend the first executive committee meeting tomorrow if they can.
Bob?
I heard a comment about the schedule for the executive meetings that was different than what I recalled. What I recalled is that we're meeting tomorrow from 9:30 to 12, and then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, all three of those days from 10 to 12. Is that incorrect? No Sunday?
No Sunday.
No Sunday. So it's just Friday from 9:30 to 12, and then Saturday and Monday from
10 to 12.
right?
10 to 12.
Is that right?
10 to 12.
Great.
Correct. And
Thank you.
Kevin sent out the Zoom links already. Those should be in your inbox.
Great.
Okay. Is there any other comment? Yes, Sharon.
Where do we stand with revisiting the vote that we voted down on a full slate last week on the qualifications?
It sounds like from this current discussion is that if they want to be individually brought up, they would need to be brought up as a motion. That is my understanding. Nod for yes, that's correct. No, yeah, okay. So if they need to be brought up, they would have to be brought up individually. That is my understanding. Yes, Bob.
That also was my understanding. That's why I made that motion, and I was amazed that nobody seconded it, especially the people from my own committee. I was amazed no one seconded it, because in my opinion, that makes it dead. The issue's dead.
All right, Jane?
I'd like to propose that the motion be tabled by Bob again and that we vote again on that issue then.
There wasn't a second, so it was never.
No second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, does that mean we can't raise it again? We can't put the motion forward again? Is that what?
Madam Vice Chair?
Kevin?
I would like to suggest, and I'm not moving that we adjourn, but I would like to suggest we adjourn and we can revisit this now that we have time to do so.
Okay. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think the reason, Bob, it didn't get a second was because it was kind of, the timing of it was not really appropriate for that moment. We were still in the middle of a discussion. It just, I know that's what it seemed to me.
Okay. Whatever.
Dick?
Yeah, what Kevin had said at the intro to that was he wanted to get a sense of if there are issues that people were thinking about they would like to bring back. It was not to discuss any of them today. I think Sharon is right that people were looking at the clock and saying, let's get out of here. Meeting's over. Because that's not what Kevin proposed, was to take them up today.
Well, my understanding is that that should have been under new business, and that was our time to do that before we go to our next meetings, which is then presenting to, you know, the town hall. So in my mind, that was the opportunity. But of course, we're going to continue on, so there's more opportunity. But before our town halls, that was kind of it. So it may be something that moves to 2022. And we can continue on for, you know, the rest of the year, because I think that that's what's going on. So yes, Kevin.
I would say that if this came up at the town halls, that it would be appropriate to say that this is still under discussion. And again, not that we're getting into a back and forth, but if there's an opportunity to say that, I think that would be appropriate. But at this point, the reason I was asking was kind of a combination of what Olivia said and what Dick said, which is, A, I wanted a sense from folks if they wanted to talk about this, and B, I would have loved it if a whole bunch of people said, yes, let's keep talking about this. Not so we formally put it on an agenda, but so that I had a sense if it's something I could put forward in the town halls or not. At this point, it will not be an intro, but if it came up under questioning or something, I think one of us describing it as under discussion would be appropriate.
And I think, Dick, you had your hand up. Is that correct? Nope. Did anyone else have their hand up then?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.